Okay, here we are. We're about to be live.
Welcome,
And
everybody.
hold
If you're
on.
joining us,
I think I am so excited to be here. It says we're live, and now we're live. I see that we're live. There's a bit of a lag between our live and the world's live, but we are two live crew, y'all. We are here and live and welcome. Really glad to welcome everyone to this conversation today. Hi, Karen.
hi, Rosie. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. Just a little tired today, but excited and uplifted to be with you and to have this conversation today, which I think is really important, really good setting of the table for what we want to be doing together this summer. So that's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Similarly, I'm feeling somber and reflective because I've just come from a memorial service for the daughter of a dear friend of mine. And it was just devastating to experience that grief and loss and listen to her friends and family members speak on about what an extraordinary young woman she was. And yeah, so just feeling very reflective and very grateful for people like you, for friends like you, that we can build beloved community. And I definitely felt that sense today in that church. There was so hundreds of people came out to speak about this young woman, the mayor of San Francisco, the state treasurer. It was really a beautiful event. But um, yeah, also tomorrow is not guaranteed. So,
No, it is not. No, it is not. I mean, I think that is the really important thing to bear in mind. I also lost someone very, very dear to me just a few weeks ago, dear to our whole family, and a real light in the world, and kind of one of the inspirations for the way I approach the work that I do. And what I told my daughters as we were making our way through the memorial and the initial grieving process is we have to be like her and find something every day to say wow about, and to say it like that, wow, because that's how she said it. And it can be really hard to find something to even mouth the wh of wow. Right now it comes out more like whoa or what the, but we have to try to find that joy and that goodness, not let the forces of evil, because they come organically. And so if we can avoid adding to them with our own chosen motions and movements and attitudes, that is a good thing. That's a win. So I'm glad that we're here today to talk with each other a little bit and hopefully excite some of you about the Interracial Sisterhood Retreat that we're going to be
yes,
co-facilitating in July. So,
yes,
yeah.
please. We would love for you to come to the Interracial Sisterhood Retreat, where we will be focused on building beloved community among women, our theme for today. But maybe
Absolutely.
we can get started by sharing a little bit about who we are and how we met each other and what we do.
Right. Excellent. Well, I used to live in the Bay Area. I lived in the East Bay for 10 years. I moved up here to Seattle a year and a half ago. And when I was in the East Bay, I was involved in various activities, both as a civilian and also through my work. And I think we met at a women's gathering when I was working in philanthropy adjacent field. And it was one of these things where we met and was like, we need to continue this conversation. And that was, what was that, Karen? 5 years ago, maybe?
Yeah, I think so, maybe
Time really does
more.
fly. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And you had started Racy Conversations, and you were bringing women together, mostly white women, to have some of these courageous conversations. And I had decided to launch my venture, Brave Sis Project. At the time, it was just a journal. Well, not just, it was a journal and a day planner that focused on Black, Brown, Asian, and Indigenous women who were erased in society. It has changed and morphed and evolved since then. But you and I did an event together. We did a Zoom live. That was my first Brave Sis event. And it was just a conversation. I wish we still had the video somewhere. We had about maybe 30 women from around the country. And even my sister-in-law piped in from Papua New Guinea, if I'm not mistaken. And that was the beginning of our conversation. You, however, have taken it to an incredible trajectory. So share a bit about what you do and how you do it. And
Sure. Well, you have taken it to an incredible trajectory too, publishing
yeah.
books and workbooks and getting a publishing deal with a publisher, and this incredible event you did recently in the Bay Area that was standing room only, a book signing event that I reconnected with you at. That was so beautiful.
Yeah.
So a little bit about me. As Rosie mentioned, I founded Racy Conversations in 2014 after a career preparing young people of color for professional careers and really hearing from them about what they were experiencing in the workplace. I decided I'm going to stop preparing young adults of color for the workplace and start preparing the workplace for young adults of color. And then in 2017, really in reaction to 53% of white women voting for Trump and a lot of the trends I was seeing in the Silicon Valley women's space that was very much dominated by a lean in, like work hard, outwit the patriarchy, and you will survive and thrive. I was like, oh, no, 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 no. We need to all come together as a collective, women, all people marginalized by gender, and especially we need to heal the divide between global majority women, Black women, and white women, which will require a lot of growth and transformation on the part of white women to be able to earn trust. So that became the focus of my work in 2017, kind of as my passion project, hosting these events to bring women together across difference all over the country. And then most recently in December of 23, the first Interracial Sisterhood retreat in Miami. It was a wonderful experience. And now we're planning the second Interracial Sisterhood retreat in San Francisco in July. And I will put the link where you can get all the information for that in the chat. So if you're watching and you want to figure out how you can come to the Interracial
Mhm.
Sisterhood retreat, it's right here. Oh, and I see Maria Christini is here. Thank you so
Mhm.
much for joining us, Maria Christini.
And my friend Rada Friedman, who's written an incredible book called Fundraising Without Burnout. And we talk a little bit across cultural and racial divides as well. Not divides, because we are very, very united, but we talk across that gulf about how do we get here, what do we have to do, and how do we get out of it. Because this is the thing, Karen, I am not interested in conversations just for conversating. We have Satan being the operative word. We are up against some like extraordinarily difficult moments of truth, right? Like seriously. My younger daughter just texted me. She's a senior at Barnard that no more classes for the year. They're all
Mm,
canceled. The lawsuits are going to tumble down like rain. It is
mm.
a tumultuous, tumultuous time with the stepping stones that we have been used to have all been washed away. And we need to hold on to each other and figure out what those new stepping stones are. What are they called? Crampons, the things you use when you're climbing a mountain. And um, the only way that we're going to do anything differently is by approaching it differently. And so when you and I first, had our first talk, I was doing Brave Sis Project. I was really at that moment into the idea of like wellness and like building a new type of representation in the wellness industry that would center Black and brown women, or rather decenter the default whiteness narrative, because that was a narrative of everything and remains ever so, right? And so that was my thing. That was my thing. I was going to take on the journal industry, you know. And then over time, particularly as I started to work in my day job in something that was more adjacent to this term that we call diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, belonging, etc., I realized that there was a lot more that we had to do.
Mm,
And I started interrogating some of the root causes, and most importantly, the blind spots behind this white centered norm of everything, right? Including what we as Black women and women of color have bought into because we all swim in the same ecosystem, the same patriarchal, capitalist, colonialist, racist, cis normative, ableist, et cetera, et cetera. That is the world we grew up in. Those are the movies we saw. Those are the heroes we had. Those are the books we read, unless we were very, very, very fortunate to be raised
mm,
outside of that. And I kept getting asked, you know, to do these one-to-one. Rosie, help me understand this. Why is it like this? What can I do? What should I do? What should I not do? And I'm going to tell you a story. When I was in my 20s, I interviewed Toni Morrison when I lived in
mm,
Paris. I did. And the thing she said to me that stuck, and some of you have heard me talk about this, she says, I don't educate anyone who's not buying my books or paying tuition. Right. What she was doing was giving me permission to draw my own boundaries around how much of myself I was going to bleed out to the world. Right. Now, as someone who grew up, as a Black woman who grew up in New York City in mostly white spaces. I did not go to an HBCU. I went to PWI and then I moved to Europe. I speak fluent white progressive women. And what I
mm,
say to people all the time is this can be an asset and a bridge builder and not, you know, an impediment. I am also blackety black. So I am able to go into communities and have conversations that no white woman will ever be privy to, because the
mm,
minute we have a mixed space, things shift. So I sort of feel myself as a bit of a shape shifter, not a tone, what do you call it? Not a code switcher, but a shape shifter in this space, in like listening, redirecting, inquiring, helping move us away from the blah blah and the superficial, and God help me, the performative nonsense, really, of sisterhood, which can be just like, oh, I bought a shirt, oh, kumbaya. No, no, no. What did you not know that led you to say that
mm,
microaggression? How do you make a reparation to the person without falling into tears and making it all about yourself again? How do you move through your baked in desire for white comfort to move us towards something bigger and better? And I
mm,
call that bigger and better. I base it on beloved community, because the DEI has gotten a bad rap thanks to some really, really negative players out there in the world who will see their day is coming, I am sure. Um, beloved community is like, it's a cooperative, collaborative, somewhat indigenous, global south, you know, culturally, ethnically, pure kind of way of looking out for each other and being a community together. I think more than ever we're seeing that the individualist way that we've approached things, including what it means to be an ally, this like the ally Olympics, doesn't work. So I'm
mm,
really excited to seed a new conversation. And I'll stop after this to say my part is going to be largely focused on the women of the global majority, because we got to get right with each other. We have been riven apart by the same forces of evil that would like to keep you and me apart. And so I'd like us to, you know, the women who have the temerity and the courage to get into that conversation for real and shift stuff. I'm looking forward to us getting together, talking about some of the lies that we need to um, expiate, so we can collectively, because you know, the minute women of color come together, we are an unmovable force, immutable. And the minute we can go to white women and say, this is how we need to ally and conspire, that would be the thing that changes the world. We literally have it within our power to do if we are willing to decenter our individual selves and think collectively. So that's what excites me.
Yes, you are singing my language. You are singing my song there, Rosie. Because my dream has been when white women with our resources and networks bring that to follow and really center the leadership of Black women, of global majority women. And we combine forces instead of allowing this divide and conquer, every woman for herself mentality, which gets us absolutely nowhere, and which our foremothers have told us for centuries we have to stop doing this,
Yep.
right? I feel an imperative, like, I feel like it is my purpose on this planet to reach and teach my white sisters, and to stop doing this, right? And to learn a new way of being in the world, in sisterhood, in solidarity, in uh, beloved community. And that is, as you said, if we had that combined force, we have the power. We have so much power. We have
You
so
know
much.
it. And I'm going to go further to say it is a a walking nightmare that we don't wake from that dream
Yes.
and take that power. You know, so you have your groups that you facilitate, and I just finished my 8-week beloved community cohort. And one of the things that we talked about is, what our friends talk about in the book White Women, the difference between being nice and being kind. And we've all been raised to be nice, and that's the whole frenemy vibe of like, oh, you look so nice. Ugh, she looks horrible. you know aren't we sick of that already? I mean, right? Aren't we just done? Don't we see that that doesn't do anything? It just injects cortisone and suffering and darkness and pain. And I'll say something, if I could, and then I want to talk about Yuri Kochiyama for a quick sec, if that's okay, Karen.
Yes.
As an example, um, so, like yesterday, I don't want to get into the whole thing about what's going on the campuses too heavily, except I have a kiddo who's on them. And yesterday, someone was saying, "Oh, this is horrible what these people are doing, the things they're saying." And I was like, don't get it twisted. First of all, you're not there. I have a kid who's there. And what I am seeing in the photos that are coming to me from the eyewitnesses are not what the media is saying. The eyewitnesses are saying we got a Seder happening, we got kids with a keffiyeh and kids with a yarmulke, and we are all together. We are practicing love. Because you know why, Karen? Because we raised those kids right. Because we took the values that we had coming up in Reagan era or whatever, another dark day, and we raised our kids right. Our kids are smarter than us. They're smarter than the president of these universities. They're smarter than the police. They're smarter than these politicians. So, like, a big part of this work is looking to them, who we raised, to lead us out of the darkness of our scarcity and our competitiveness and our whatever the hell we've bought into, have driven us away from our original values or ways of being in the world. Why am I bringing this up? And why is because in my book, this is
Mm.
Yuriko Chiyama. Wait a minute, there we go. There she is. And when I went, this is the book, yes. And all the people who come to the retreat will get my other book. They will get my journal. But in this book, when I looked at the galleys and I got to the last page, and I got to Joelle's illustration of Yuri Kochiyama backwards. Here we go. I burst into tears because, first of all, this is like the most beautiful illustration. She's got her hand up in power. And who was she? People might not know who she was, and that's a shame. Who she was the very good friend of Malcolm X, who, in the famous photo where Malcolm X is dying in the Audubon Ballroom, she is holding him in her arms. And how did they meet? Her father, and this is where the history part comes in, and this is the thing I do, is like I gather and curate these stories and bring them out as a way to be anchor points for us to consider our positions today, right? Her dad was in a prison camp during the internment. He died. She could have been bitter. Instead, she dedicated herself to helping people through housing and other issues. She lived in Harlem. She She hosted the Young Lords, the Puerto Rican. She got all into it, and she heard about Malcolm X. She went to see him, and she was like, "I want to shake your hand." And he was like, "Who are you?" Because we were living in that separated place. Who is this Japanese American woman? What is she doing here? And she said, "You're doing for your people what I want to do for mine, and I want to shake your hand." And they became friends. They became co-conspirators, and she became the being that held him in his final breaths on this earth. And we need to know that. Like when I was living in Oakland and all the Black on Asian crime was happening, and there was this prevalent narrative again in the media, because they want money and they want clicks and they want ads. They want you to get depressed, so you keep scrolling. This prevalent narrative about, oh, there's separation. But we don't have to believe that, and we can audaciously write a different narrative and live in the world we want to live in, rather than the one that these outsiders who don't want our best interests, they don't care about us or how we feel, any of us, not you white women either. We can build the world. That's why I call it beloved community. We can lead with that level of, I see you, I value you, I honor you. Let's go change this thing together.
Ah,
In an
I
election year, how important is that?
so important. And I believe we are being manipulated by media. We're being manipulated by social media. This is why it's so important that we sit with each other face to face, as Yuri Kochiyama and Malcolm X did. Like, we need to break bread together. One of the things that really inspired me to create the Interracial Sisterhood Retreat is learning the organizing principles of the Black Panthers. And the Black Panthers, after they had their meetings, they would have barbecues, right? Because that time to build relationship and to listen to each other's stories and to not be organizing, but to actually be in community with each other is so important to our well-being as individuals and the well-being of our movement. So I'm not trying to organize a retreat because I want us to, you know, space out and you know what I mean, like numb out and not what I want us to have, that precious time to be in community with each other and to really get to know each other, because I believe that that is going to be the foundation of our success in transforming systems.
And I am reading a book right now. I have a pile of books. It's too much. About some of the origins of this black white or white non-white divide. This goes back to the plantation. It
Mm,
goes back to the plantation and the plantation mistress, and the way that the enslaved black woman was treated, right? And I'm going to, by the time we gather, I will have read that book and a few other books. I'm going to have all the knowledge top of mind. But as many of you know, Ida B. Wells, who's also in the book, um not all of them are like the household names. There are a lot of unknown people, but it was good to have a mix. Ida B. Wells was a big suffragist, right? And some of you know this because you heard my LinkedIn Live and Insta Live about, is feminism really white supremacy in high heels? If you haven't seen that, you can look it up. Um, it's an hour long. I have a lot to say. She was trying to organize black women to vote, get the vote for women in the 1920s, and the white suffragists were saying no, because the Southern women will not have an integrated march. So the black women, you have to march in the back of the parade. And Ida B. Wells said, "Oh, hell no." She sat on the side of the sidewalk, and when the parade came by, she just peeled right in. This was during the heyday and the highest time of lynching. She put her life on the line to make that point. And a good friend of mine was like, "Rosie, I've got a tattoo of Alice Paul's name." Um, yes, I will. Just a second. "I've got a tattoo of Alice Paul on my arm. I gotta take that off. I didn't
mm,
know." Margaret Sanger, head of Planned Parenthood, we revere her. She was a eugenicist. So you say to yourself, how is this possible? How is this possible that these women we held up as great feminists, because of racism, because of slavery, and that was only about 30 years or 40 years 50 years before, right? That was going on. 50 years before for us is the 70s, which is when the second wave of feminism was coming up,
Mm.
right? Just to give you some historical perspective. And we don't know that. We don't know that. So we just accept it. We, as women of color, look to our white feminist sisters to take this sort of like B flat feminism and make it work for us, not knowing that it is rooted in white supremacy and separation. So let's have that conversation. Let's learn about Ida B. Wells. Let's learn about these other women, Fannie Lou Hamer, oh God, some of these women, some of these Native American indigenous women who did incredible things to get agency for their people. Let us use that as pride and build on the shoulders that we stand on so we can build something better for our kids below and get out of the sort of ready-made packaged narratives about who won, who was right, who was wrong. We're all right if we choose to be, and now is our moment to do it.
Yes. To finally, as Audre Lorde told us, we must create those patterns of relating across difference as equals so we can finally build a multiracial, multi-generational, multi-class, multi-sexuality, multi-able women's movement and take down the patriarchy for once and for all. um yes, and as you were thinking, I was thinking about how so much of the suffragettes, they learned from Native women what it is to have a matriarchal society, what it is for women to have real power. And I think
Mhm.
for my white sisters, we, at least for me, I never really thought about us having intergenerational trauma, but many of my mentors were like, Karen, you really need to go back and study why your people left Europe. And when I went back and learned about the witch hunt, and I learned about how prior to the onslaught of capitalism, women in Europe actually had power. We lived collectively, we tended crops together, animals, we were ale makers, spiritual leaders, etc. And then when the elite were like, okay, no, that's it, we're closing off the commons, and now you all are sharecroppers. That's your little piece there, and that's your little piece there. And oh, by the way, men are superior to women. The women who are like, hey, I do not co-sign for that, they accuse them of being witches and burn them at the stake, putting their kids in the front row. And to think about what the lessons we took from that in terms of, align yourself with the most violent and you will be spared of violence. But if you try to defy this system, they will
And
kill you.
you're only spared from violence until it is no longer convenient. Like, let's just not get it twisted. Ladies, sisters, we got to do this together because we are our only hope. And, I was thinking about Mama Jo Riley, the great midwife from South Carolina. She's in the South Carolina Hall of Fame. I gave her honor in one of the past journals that I did because the journal used to also be a coloring book because why not? She birthed over 13,000, I don't even know how many babies, and using traditional birthing techniques because that's what the women did. Often it was enslaved women using folk medicine techniques that had been passed down through the generations from Africa. In the early 20th century, white capitalist hospital male gynecology who had practiced their gynecology, as we know, on unanesthetized Black women, which is another evil history story. If you don't know about it, we can maybe talk about that a bit later at some other point. They decided, no, medicine is improvement and twilight sleep is the way to give birth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, decimating a whole way of life and a whole connectivity to the earth that people are refinding in this day and age, or even earlier. But it was a deliberate thing. So when we think about progress, we got to really interrogate that. And I'm not saying we're going to go live in a hut and be like, oh, let me have my raw beans or anything like that. No, I enjoy my nice, comfortable things. But the idea of progress, who is defining it? Who is
Mm.
defining what is good for you? And so what I really hope we will be able to do together, and this is all I ever really want to do. So I'm excited to build this with you, Karen, and a group of women, and then just on and on into infinity, is what are we building? What are we building together for us? And then because most women have that nurturance in them, for everyone else, that we're going to
Yeah.
push it out to the rest of the world to heal this world and save this decrepit world. We are, my God, at time. Are there any questions? We could go, obviously we're going to do more of these because we start and we just keep going.
Yes, and please do sign up. We would love for you to come to the retreat. Right now, we are on the early bird time.
Yep.
So you are eligible for a
Pretty sweet
you are
discount.
yes. This
Because
is the cheapest
let's
it's gonna
not
be.
get it twisted. The gals got to get paid. We love this. And if we can make a little money from this to sustain ourselves, we can take it even further and even deeper. We could do this. We could do these LinkedIn lives. One way you listen, you put something in the chat, and maybe we see it or we don't. Or we can deliberately commit to building something together that is much more co-creative. And in the MailChimp link, I just want to say the business piece. If you work for a corporation that has professional development funds, that is a great application of those funds to this event, which is on the tail end of the calendar year. It's the second half of the year. So if you haven't allocated your PD money yet, this is a good investment. I can promise you we're going to have a really, really, really delicious time.
Yes. And I just popped the link to the Hotel Kabuki in there so you can see the beautiful location in the thriving Japantown Fillmore area of San Francisco, which is a real center of interracial solidarity and organizing.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah.
So I don't see any questions
Just
popping up.
kind words, just excited comments. So that's great. Friends, share this video, share this idea, share this word, share this links with your networks. I'm gonna say one more thing that's just brass tacks. These algorithms do not work for anyone. And so the only way we can get the word out, we could spend thousands of dollars we don't have doing ads that would go nowhere. Or we could like grassroots it and word of mouth it, which is the best way anyway. So please, if this excites and interests you, even if you can't go, if you know someone who might be interested, reach out and share it, because we really are determined, and we don't want to be like full-time marketers. We want to be focusing on the content and the convening. So let's do this together.
Thank you, Rosie. Thank you to everyone who joined us. Adina, Rada, Maria, Randy, Sherry. Thank you for your comments.
There's so many
Um,
other names too who were very quiet. We hope that
yes.
you will feel free to speak up and join in and share your thoughts and questions. And we look forward to being together with you in a few months.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Have a beautiful day.
Be well, my friends.